25% increase. We're going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs on steel into the United States of America.
President Trump says these tariffs will help American farmers and ranchers, but farmers and ag economists tell me they're worried, and they think this will not only hurt California farmers, but also California consumers at the grocery store.
Corn, agricultural product coming into America, and our farmers starting on April 2nd. It may be a little bit of an adjustment period, but our farmers are going to have a field day right
In an increasingly volatile trade environment, President Donald Trump's decision to double tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from 25% to 50% has ignited a political and economic firestorm. Heralded by the administration as a necessary shield for American workers and industries, the move is being pitched as a windfall for U.S. farmers and ranchers. Yet, far from celebrating, many of those same farmers, particularly in agriculture-rich states like California, Iowa, and Illinois, are expressing deep unease. Trump's rhetoric paints an optimistic picture, that stronger tariffs will level the playing field, boost domestic production, and force foreign competitors into fairer trade practices. He has claimed that farmers may face an adjustment period, but ultimately they're going to have a field day. Yet behind this confident bravado lies a complex web of international trade relationships, political sensitivities, and unintended consequences. That complexity became glaringly obvious when one of America's most loyal allies, Canada, struck back. In a move that would have once been unthinkable, Ottawa announced retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, targeting core American exports with a precision that stunned many observers. What makes this moment so remarkable isn't just the economics, it's the symbolism. Canada, known globally for its civility and moderate politics, is rarely seen wielding economic weapons. But the actions of the United States forced its hand. Far from being cowed by the weight of Washington's influence, Canada delivered a sharp strategic response. This rupture comes as a jolt to a relationship historically defined by economic cooperation. The United States and Canada have long shared one of the world's largest bilateral trading partnerships. Their economies intricately woven together by geography, logistics, and decades of shared agreements like NAFTA and its successor, USMCA. Prime Minister Mark Carney captured the national mood when he declared, "We're polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around." Canada's first counterpunch landed with striking symbolism. On July 1st, Canada Day, Ottawa rolled out an initial round of retaliatory tariffs back in 2018. Fast forward to 2025, and the second act of this trade drama is unfolding with even greater intensity. On March 4th, Ottawa unveiled a carefully curated list of American goods subject to new duties. These were not random selections. Each item was chosen with both strategic and political calculation. Agricultural products, household appliances, motorcycles, apparel, paper products, and even footwear are all in the crosshairs. As the Canadian tariffs take effect, their reverberations are rippling through America's agricultural core with unsettling force. For generations, U.S. farmers have relied on Canada not simply as a neighboring trade partner, but as a vital, reliable market. Take orange juice, for instance, a product synonymous with Florida's agricultural identity. With a 10% tariff slapped on American juice, Canadian retailers are now incentivized to buy from Brazil or Mexico. Canadian consumers might not even notice the switch, but for Florida citrus growers already squeezed by crop diseases and hurricanes, the loss of a steady Canadian market could be the difference between profit and ruin. Tariffs on pork, beef, poultry, and other prepared meats are striking a particularly painful chord across the Midwest. Canada is a top 5 export market for U.S. pork, an industry heavily concentrated in states like Iowa and Minnesota. If Canadian buyers reduce their imports or demand steep price reductions to offset tariffs, American producers are left with surplus supply and weakened negotiating leverage. In an industry where price per pound often determines survival, even a small decline in export volume can be devastating. What makes this crisis so acute is that agriculture is uniquely vulnerable to trade shocks. Just look back to 2018-2019, when the first salvo of Trump-era tariffs triggered a global retaliation spiral. China slammed the door shut on U.S. soybeans, historically one of America's most valuable exports. The Trump administration authorized a massive bailout package totaling $28 billion over 2 years to offset the losses. That figure exceeded the actual damages in many cases, serving as a tacit admission of policy failure. Small-town economies built around agriculture begin to wobble when their anchor industry falters. Equipment suppliers, trucking companies, feed mills, grain elevators, and farm supply stores all rely on steady farm incomes. While American farmers bear the early brunt of retaliatory tariffs, a deeper irony is beginning to unfold. The sectors originally meant to benefit from tariffs like steel and aluminum are now finding themselves entangled in a web of unintended consequences. Canada, which had been one of the largest importers of U.S. steel and aluminum products, did not take the new tariffs lying down. Canadian buyers are turning to European, Asian, or domestic suppliers. For American producers, this is more than a lost sale. It's a loss of market share, of influence, and in many cases, of long-term relationships. The intended protection turns into suffocation. Meanwhile, American consumers are paying the price quite literally. Tariffs function as taxes on imports. That's why the average U.S. household saw its expenses rise by over $1,500 per year during the initial trade war phase. Everything from washing machines to orange juice became more expensive. If the tit-for-tat escalation with Canada continues, those costs will only climb higher. But the economic costs are just one layer of the fallout. The political reverberations are beginning to register as voters question whether they were helped or harmed by the very policies they cheered. Rural voters, traditionally reliable supporters of the Republican Party and President Trump, are now more vocal in their dissatisfaction. They were promised a trade strategy that would revive American agriculture. In 2018, when the European Union retaliated by targeting Harley-Davidson motorcycles, the Wisconsin-based company announced it would move some production overseas to avoid new costs. It was a striking example of how tariffs designed to protect American jobs instead drove them offshore. There is a deeper, more intangible cost: the erosion of trust among America's allies and trading partners. For Canada, the accusation of being a national security threat was more than galling. It was a rupture in the logic of alliance. What comes next? The trajectory could go one of two ways. The first is further escalation. If the U.S. continues down its current path, the spiral will continue. The other path is de-escalation, a negotiated retreat. In a globalized world, economic decisions don't happen in a vacuum. They ripple across borders, industries, and communities. Trade wars are not, in fact, easy to win. They are unpredictable, disruptive, and deeply human in their consequences. The damage may start with dollars and cents, but it ends with livelihoods, trust, and the bonds between nations that took generations to build, and only moments to fret.